Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. I have with me Martins Bratuskins. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, it's Bratuskins.
Bratuskins, okay. Yeah. And he's going to talk to us about Monetizr, the platform that he's developing, the service he's developing. So welcome, Martin.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm super excited.
All right, good. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Give as much or as little background, career, education-wise, whatever you want. And so just why don't we start there?
Sure. My name is Martins. I'm a co-founder and a COO of Monetizr. I'm originally from Latvia in Europe, and I moved to the United States together with my co-founder to start Monetizr and work in the gaming space. So Monetizr is a platform that enables game publishers to make money and to engage with players both online and offline. Mm-hmm. My background is that I've always been obviously interested in games, and I've always been a gamer myself. Actually, I studied civil engineering in a university, and that's something that most people don't know about me. Okay. I graduated from civil engineering. I also studied in Germany. Started working for a company in that field, and quite quickly I realized that that's not exactly what I want to do. I started going to hackathons, and I discovered this whole new world of technology startups and people and engineers and people that are trying to build awesome things. And I've always wanted to build awesome things. That's why I started studying civil engineering in the first place. I had a few startups before, had one exit before, worked together with my co-founder Andris, also from Latvia originally, on a few e-commerce sites. We sold a lot of products mostly in Europe, but also worldwide. And then somehow, eventually, we realized that we had the same pains of the difficulties that arise from monetizing any kind of apps and games, and then we decided to start Monetizr.
Okay. And so before we get into Monetizr, can you also say how you got to know about blockchain technology and how you started down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we started the company a little bit more than 2 years ago, and we didn't have any ideas about implementing blockchain in particular. I was always kind of interested in, it was all very, very exciting when Bitcoin was, getting traction, and then all the Ethereum and then Ethereum Classic and all of these cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies. And that was something that always fascinated me. Also, one of my co-founders was very into that kind of stuff. So he was always this blockchain enthusiast in our team. Mm-hmm. We built the company up to a certain point without any plans to use blockchain, because we were always fearing that, okay, maybe it's just if we can do this easier and quicker with other options and other technologies, maybe we should do that first. But then one thing that led us to use blockchain was basically the reason why we started using blockchain is because in our business, our product is basically an API and a plugin that works inside existing games. So we don't make games ourselves, but we work with existing games. And the challenge is that in order to do business, we do collect a lot of data about gamer behavior, usage, buying habits, and that kind of stuff. And for small studios, game studios, it's not a problem. They kind of, they trust us with the data and stuff like that. So there's no problem there. But when we started talking with bigger companies, like EA, Zynga, Activision, Sega, those guys, for them, it's a totally different story. For them, like the user data privacy is a very, very, very important issue. And, they want to make sure that nothing wrong happens to it. And since we're still an early small company, that was always a very hard question to answer to those guys. And then we kind of looked at all the options that exist, and we landed upon using blockchain as a way to store this information, where those companies have like the private keys and the specific keys that they can access the user information, so they don't actually share their user information with anyone else. It's always like they are the only ones who have access to that.
Right.
But at the same time, it enables us to collect and share this behavior information, which is anonymized user information, and it allows us to collect this information, share it across all of the games that we work with, so giving additional benefits to all of the participants of the ecosystem, and that's how we got into blockchain.
Okay, so it was a way to solve the privacy needs requirements of some of your customers then.
Yes.
Yeah. And so so what blockchain do you store the large amounts of data on?
So right now we are in a transition period. We are working with EDC. That's why obviously one of the reasons why we're here is that we think EDC is a great they have a great team and great resources for companies like ours to actually build their solutions on blockchain. So yeah, that's why we're here.
Oh, well, because the reason I was asking was a lot of people are concerned that it's very expensive to use a blockchain as a database, and so if you're storing large amounts of data on the blockchain, that some people might wonder if that gets really expensive, if that's a problem.
So I think what you're referring here is yes, of course it is. That's kind of like my first. That was my first reaction when we started discussing internally. Should we use blockchain or shouldn't we use blockchain? And that's a very good question. So we have come up with a solution that enables us to, again, not store all of the, literally all of the information on the blockchain, but only the learnings. So the behavior data, the data that we need to basically to do our business, and that also helps other customers of ours kind of to learn from this information and apply it into their games. So the amount of data that we store is not that huge. And also another thing that I wanted to mention is that I think like at least in the blockchain crypto industry, I think many people are trying to apply blockchain in solutions which require like very high and fast transaction speeds, which is, I think it's just like, for me, it's always been a little bit weird because blockchain is good for other reasons and speed is not one of them, at least at this moment in time.
Right.
So, it's kind of like when you have a tractor and you're trying to make it go as fast as a Formula One car. Like, I mean, it does different things. So why would we do that?
Right. We don't use blockchains for speed. We use it because it's trustless, the resiliency, reliability for other reasons. Yeah.
So that's exactly how I think about this.
Okay. And so you decided blockchain technology might be good to make the big customers happy because it was stored trustlessly, and also you can encrypt it to preserve privacy. And so can you kind of tell us a little bit of the story of how that led you to a relationship with ETC Labs and how you got accepted and how you got to working with them?
We have myself and my co-founder and now everyone on our team. I would say that we're hustling very, very hard. I think it's all about networking. It's all about building your network of people that are on your side. And we have always been doing this from the very, very beginning of our company. We went through like we have this is not the first accelerator that we have gone through. We have gone through. We have graduated from UpTech, which is like a rather small incubator / accelerator in Cincinnati, Ohio. Great, like that was a perfect first step for us, because that was they gave us like all the necessary tools and network and introduction that we needed back then, and then they enabled us to be accepted to TechStars. We graduated at TechStars in Atlanta. That was last year, and TechStars obviously opened so much more doors. And now, as we started developing on part of our solution on blockchain, and obviously, like from all of the networks that we were plugged into, I wouldn't say that there were very strong connections in the blockchain space and crypto space. So that made a perfect sense to kind of find a partner like that somewhere in the blockchain space. And we talked with so many people. We have gone to many events, conferences, networked a lot, and then somehow we got connected to Elizabeth, who is the program director here at EDC Labs, and we kind of hit it off, and a couple of months went by, and now we're here.
Okay, good. Now I want to pick up on something that you said, how you're hustling, struggling to keep things advancing, and I've had other groups from ETC Labs, and they described a similar process. And so would you agree that getting venture capital funding, that you're working just as hard, if not harder, than somebody that wasn't trying to do a startup, that was just working at a big company getting a paycheck?
I mean, well, I think there's just like this totally different motivation, a different mindset that you're in when you're doing something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I think all of us all of the people that you have spoken to, and all of the people here at EDC Labs, and also that's exactly the same kind of attitude that I saw in TechStars and UpTech, and literally all the successful entrepreneurs that I meet. They all share this kind of like an obsession about their product, their business, always trying to learn new things, always, not choosing the easiest way, but choosing the way that potentially has the biggest return of your time or money investment.
Right.
Always learning, always, never thinking that you're correct or you're right. Always kind of trying to challenge your beliefs, challenge your hypotheses, talk with customers, talk with investors. I think it's a different mindset. I myself, I have worked at 2 bigger companies before, and even on myself, I know I have seen this transition, this other side of me opening up when I'm doing Monetizr versus what I was doing when that was someone else's company.
Right. I mean, you're doing more than just technology, right? You have to do marketing and dealing with getting financing. So it's a bigger picture, a lot more things that have to be involved.
Exactly. And I would even maybe say that technology is, of course, it's a big part of it. It adds a lot of value. But I think, if you look at all the companies, if you look at startups in general, right? I think if you look at what are the main reasons why companies fail, it's usually not technology. It's usually market adoption. It's usually people, team conflicts. It's not being able to raise money for your business. It's not being able to sell. It's all these many reasons. And I think accelerators like EDC Labs and TechStars and all UpTech and literally all the accelerators out there, I think they're doing a very good job, because they're trying to kind of to play around with trying to put you into these other into these positions of, hey, you have to sell, you have to reach these milestones, hey, you have to also do marketing, you have to raise money, and what are the most effective ways to do that, how to think about that. Because many times technological people gonna do what they love, which is code,
Yeah.
but then they kind of forget about other things, which are as or even more important. So, it's kind of a balance that you have to find.
Right, right. So I think you would agree then it's the completely wrong idea if somebody thinks, oh, if I get venture capital funding, that I have free money and everything's easy. And right, it's not like that at all, right?
Well, I mean, maybe some people think like that, but I don't think that that's the right way to think about it, because eventually every dollar that you raise in fundraising rounds, it's it's kind of like, okay, you're bringing these other people in your network. They have their own expectations. Obviously they're betting on you to make this successful and to make them more money. So you can't be as you are forced by taking more money from outside investors. I think it forces you to think not only about yourself and not only about what I want to do, but also about them and how they play into this and how they can help you. And that's just something you have to think about, I think.
Right. And then I like also what you said about how you notice that you and a lot of other the people that run startups are passionate. I think that's so important for anybody listening, right? You just really have to love what you're doing, really believe in it. And that passion is what's going to overcome all of the funding shortages, all of the issues, the difficulties. And so I mean, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's totally like most of the time when you're doing something, like when you're running your own company, I think people that have never done this before, they have a wrong impression about what it's actually like, because it's not like you get to choose what you do. It's even you basically have to do all of these things that, at least in the early stages, that you don't have any idea how to do that. You have deadlines, you have a 1,000 other things that you need to do, and you just have to somehow manage all of that. One quote that I really liked is about time management, because like the quote is something like this, that time management and prioritization doesn't mean choosing important tasks over not important tasks. It actually means choosing that like 1, 2 most important tasks over 100 other super important tasks that all need to be done yesterday. And there are many people bugging you from all the different sides that, hey, this needs to be done, but you still have to prioritize. And I think that's the hardest thing about running your company.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So saying no to at the right time, and then saying yes to the most important things. Yeah.
Yes, it's difficult. I'm still learning how to do that. I try to challenge myself, and I really try to say no more, because that's just what you need to do, because you cannot do everything.
Right. Right. Okay. So you've given us a pretty good introduction to yourself, and you've kind of also told us a little bit about the startup life and how you got involved with ETC Labs. Why don't you now give us a little bit more detail about Monetizr, which you're so passionate about?
Sure. So what Monetizr is? Monetizr is a plugin for game publishers that helps them to create new revenue streams inside their games, and also engage with players, not only online but also offline. What I mean by that is that we enable game publishers to create these rewards for gamers, meaning physical rewards like game-branded swag, for example, or even branded gift cards and other branded products, and eventually also cryptocurrencies that can serve as rewards inside games for rewarding your loyal gamers. The way how we look at any game is kind of like a journey from the gamer's perspective, right? Kind of like the same journey that you see in every Hollywood blockbuster movie, like Star Wars, right? Luke Skywalker, kind of this guy, nobody grew up on this solid planet called Tatooine, and then he's somehow the chosen one. There are many mentors that helped him to basically to solve the challenges, get over those mountains, all the bigger things that he has to do in his life. And I think the same thing applies to games, because every gamer is a superhero, and game developers, basically, they have to make sure that these superheroes can have the necessary tools, have the necessary mentors along the way, that they can solve those challenges, save those princesses, lead those massive armies.
Now, when you say mentors, do you mean other players and that are helping each other? Is that what you mean?
I mean, that can be a mentor, but in most games, those mentors are are some kind of game elements, okay. Like tutorials. I don't know, someone who helps inside the game. That can be another player, but that can also be something that is made by the game developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you said that it's a plugin.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about the technical details. So somebody comes out with a game, Counter-Strike, right, or whatever, Halo, any game. So they're not, or maybe they will let you add a plugin. So how can you kind of describe how exactly do you plug into a arbitrary game?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're obviously always improving the way how we do that, because we want to get as many customers as we can on the platform. So the plugin is it's an API, and we also have an SDK. We primarily right now we focus on mobile games, so Android and iOS games. Okay. Eventually, of course, we will also expand to consoles and VR, AR. All the other PC, of course, all the other game platforms. But right now, that's one of the things that we had to say no to, because, okay, mobile first. Mobile is the fastest growing segment of the market. Makes sense to be there. So the way how we integrate with games is we have this SDK or API that game publishers can plug into their games, and then they can configure these campaigns for rewards. So let's say, have you ever used one of the tools like If This Then That or Zapper? Have you?
Yes.
So it basically works exactly like that, but in a game. So
for the people that aren't, so I've used it, but for the people that aren't familiar with Zapper, why don't you kind of describe what you're referring to?
So Zapper is kind of like this tool which you can use to. It's kind of like an If This Then That function. It has these apps which are like triggers, which you can trigger. They can trigger based on almost anything that you can imagine. It can be a tweet with a specific hashtag, for example. It can be an Instagram picture by this specific account. It can be temperature dropping to this particular level, or it can be literally anything. And then when that trigger happens, when it triggers, then you can configure all the other actions that happen. For example, when temperature drops below, 50 degrees, turn your thermostat to high so that it starts warming up your house. And Zapper and If This Then That, these two companies provide these tools and integrations for you to basically play around with. We apply the same thing in games, where a game developer can customize their campaigns inside the game. And by triggers, I mean, for example, player reaching level, let's say 5. When you're at level 5, it's kind of like this trigger that triggers a notification that says, "Hey, you're doing great. You're among the top 10% of the players. Keep going, and you'll unlock something extra inside the game." Right. Then another campaign is, okay, once you reach, let's say, level 10, you unlock, for example, a very unique game shirt that we supply and we fulfill for the game companies. That kind of serves as a reward. And ultimately, with this same kind of campaign structure, we also want to add cryptocurrencies inside this ecosystem, because we believe that all the value, all the time and skills that gamers develop while playing games, they shouldn't be restricted to one game and one game only. You as a gamer, you should be able to take some of that value across multiple games, and that's where the cryptocurrency aspect plugs into all of this. So imagine reward like T-shirts, even branded gift cards, and cryptocurrencies that you can use inside this game or take to other games.
Right. Okay, so now I think that makes it a lot more clear. So the plugin is not something that the user is doing independently of the game creator. It's the game creator that's partnering with your service to add this extra part to their game.
Exactly. We basically supply these. I tend to think about these if this then that triggers and actions kind of like as Lego blocks, because game developers can basically we have these instructions, meaning we have like configured campaigns that they can use out of the box. But once they have used it and once they understand and get the hang of it, they can start combining and like playing around with and like adjusting tiny things, even create their own triggers and actions, eventually creating this marketplace where they can create millions and millions of these Lego blocks and do amazing things.
Right. Okay. And so presumably they're happy if you come to these game companies, they're happy to they're interested to use your services to add more interesting features to their games.
So yeah, they add the reasons why our current customers use us is because first of all, we enable them to create these amazing experiences for gamers, meaning like even like real world products that they can either claim and buy or claim and get for free inside a game, or even and then that's the first reason why game developers use us. The second one is that we add a new revenue stream. If you make those products, let's say game T-shirts, T-shirt is our most popular product. That's why I'm using T-shirt as an example. Okay. Like imagine you unlocking a super specific, super exclusive T-shirt that only these players can get, and the more, I mean, of course, the more challenges that you have to go through to unlock this shirt, the more special it gets, and no one else can get it. And that's when game developers can also sell different kind of swag and trophies, if you will, to their loyal gamers to make them happy, and to basically to extend the game from the digital screen to the physical world, which is what is not really not really possible other than by using Monetizr.
Right. And then I can see how blockchain, you were talking about wanting to do things between games. And I can see how the blockchain is like a base layer that would allow different game swag, different gifts, things to transfer between games. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And like our big vision is that means of transfer can be a cryptocurrency, meaning like a currency that works across all games, like a universal gaming currency, if you will. Okay. And that's where we're going. And right now we're building these building blocks in order to get there. And we're most of those, like most important things for that cryptocurrency to exist is that we need to have a big network of like this critical mass of gamers and games on the platform that that will eventually overlap. Let's say you're a gamer and then it's likely that you will play multiple games which have integrated Monetizr, and at that moment that makes sense. Before that just it's going to be hard for gamers to see the value. But once you're playing at least 2, 3, 4 games where you can use the same currency, that's when it becomes super valuable.
Right. And so how are you using or plan to use Ethereum Classic for this?
So the first step is that we're going to accept Ethereum Classic as payment, as a payment method inside all the games that we work with. We are already working on that integration. We're hoping to launch it within the next 2 months. So that's the first step. And then ultimately, there are many other ideas that we have about integrating Ethereum Classic, but that's kind of like a little bit further down the line.
Okay. And so you're going to be using ETC tokens. Did you give any thought, or would there be any reason to develop your own token that runs on top of Ethereum Classic?
So that's one of the things that I was just telling you about. Yes, we are thinking about that, but like I think that, like, there have been companies like these, ICO projects, I should say, that have had like this idea of, hey, let's create a currency that works, I don't know, for all games, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge for those companies, and I haven't seen any of those companies really make any traction, and I think I know why. The reason why is that they're trying to do everything too quickly, and in order to get this mass adoption of anything like a universal game currency or our own token, there needs to be this network. And that's why we are right now focusing on building this network of games. Right now, today, we have 30 games on the platform already. Those are like independent game studios with a total reach of 17 million gamers. So we have ambitious plans to get to 100 million gamers by the end of this year, and then sometime next year, approximately in 1 year time. That's when we believe we will have the critical mass of gamers playing the games that we work with to start implementing something like a universal token that works across these games.
Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is a custom token might be useful, but it's not the biggest priority right now. It's best to wait till you have more market share, and then maybe consider that.
Yes, that's like exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So it's all very exciting stuff for gamers. Now, and so why don't you, let's talk a little bit about the future. So what do you see yourself, and what do you hope for Monetizr in 1, 5, or 10 years?
I think like maybe I can in 1 year. Like the future looks like, in my head, it looks like that we are working with at least 100 game publishers. Through those games, we are reaching at least 100 million gamers worldwide. So that's like in a year, with pretty much the solution that we have running today. In 5 years, I believe that what I want Monetizr to be a very necessary part for any game developer when they're building games. Because right now, if you think about something like Unity, right? Like Unity and the game engine, I would say that 85% of all games are made on Unity. So Unity is kind of like a very clear market leader in game development. In 5 years' time, I see Monetizr as something that sits on top of Unity, which basically which is this if this then that type of platform, which enables game developers to build their games, create amazing campaigns, and by campaigns I mean campaigns that are like integrated into the game storyline, and maybe even time-based campaigns like Christmas campaigns, Black Friday campaigns, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I in 5 years, I think Monetizr will be this add-on to a game development engine like Unity or Unreal. And there are some others as well.
Yeah, no, that would certainly be exciting for you as a startup founder, right? Sounds like what you're saying is your service would be so well known and so appreciated that people would almost start to expect new games to have it, right?
Yeah, that's the goal.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah. So thank you. I think we got a good idea of what you're doing. So for the audience, there you have it, another Ethereum Classic application that is in the making. So yes, thank you. Did I forget to mention anything? Did we cover everything?
I think we did. Yeah, if you want to learn more about Monetizr, you can go to monetizr.io.
Okay.
Check it out, and you can find me, Martins, anywhere on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll also put the website in the metadata to the show. also. So yeah. All right, great. Well, thank you, Martins, for taking the time to explain Monetizr and introduce yourself. And I just wish you luck. Keep working hard.
Thank you so much. And I hope that in a few months' time we can jump on a call again and I can tell you some exciting updates.
All right. Sounds good. All
right. Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right.